When we look at goal setting, it's really a 5-step cycle for growth as an educator and as a professional. So the cycle has to begin with the educator. It needs to begin with a new teacher. They need to engage in a self-assessment process and analyze past student learning and their own professional practice. And then hopefully you'll come in kind of at that second stage, the analysis and goal setting and plan development stage, and help them determine what sort of baseline data they want to look at, what kind of baseline data they want to pull from, and help them use that to draft a goal. And we'll look at the components of a SMART goal in a minute. Once they identify their goal, they will develop a plan for how they will achieve that goal. They will determine what evidence they will need, and they will begin collecting evidence. Then they will have their formative assessment or evaluation. They'll have a mid-year evaluation that has to be done by the end of January with their administrator. Hopefully you would be checking in lots of times between now and January to kind of make sure that they are making progress towards their goal and they're collecting appropriate evidence. And then, of course, at the end of the cycle is the summative evaluation, which would be completed by the end of May with their administrator. And so that's kind of the 5 components of the cycle. And then they would self-assess again and determine, what gaps in comprehension still exist, so that way they can create, their goal for the following year. Make sure that your new teacher understands that student achievement is a component of their observation. And so when they have their post-observation conference with their administrator, student achievement will be discussed, and goal monitoring is a part of that discussion. And so again, their administrator won't be waiting until January at the mid-year to check in and see their progress towards this goal. So just make sure that they understand that and are ready when they go to their post-observation conferences, that they have some of that data readily available with them so that they're prepared for that conversation. Again, just make sure that the new teacher knows that it's part of their summative performance report as well. Again, Performance Standard 7 is that student academic progress. And so they are going to have to illustrate that they set an appropriate goal based on the baseline data, they've documented progress throughout the year, and that they have provided appropriate interventions and strategies. So that's why it's really great if you can sit down with your new teacher, help them look at their baseline data, help them craft an annual goal, and then help them think about what sort of evidence they would want to keep track of throughout the year. It'd be great too if you could simulate that annual goal meeting with your new teacher so that they can kind of practice that conversation before they have it with an administrator. So what's the purpose of a goal? The goal is great in helping us get focused on what to make a priority in our daily instruction, and it helps us define what the desired future outcome is and how we can measure it. So when we think about our new teacher's goal, we want it to be SMART. We want it to be specific. It needs to focus on a specific student population, have a specific time frame. It needs to be measurable. How much? How many? How will I know it's accomplished? What evidence and data do I need? The A, is it attainable? Is it doable? Is it action-oriented? Does it identify the outcome? Who is doing what? Is everyone clear in what their role is? Is it realistic? Or is the new teacher really willing and able to work towards it? Is it results focused? For example, we're going to increase scores by 10%, so is it a realistic goal? And the T is it timely? Is it timed and tracked? Make it public. Sometimes teachers have data trackers in their classroom and it's public. We need to protect, of course, student information and student privacy and student names, but certainly data can be tracked publicly, so that way we know if we're working towards our goal. So there's 2 types of goals. You can have a student learning goal and a professional practice goal. And we want to make sure that as teachers are writing their SMART goal that it's aligned with the school vision and mission and also Bedford County strategic plan. Is it in line with the division's goals and the division's initiatives? And so we have to consult with the data. You need to help your new teacher realize what sort of data points they want to start with and what data points they'll need throughout the year in order to see growth. And remember, they want to see growth and want to be concerned about growth of every student, not just, a small percentage of the population. There are a couple of sample goals on page 8 and 9 in the Teacher Performance Handbook, which is on Bedford County's website under the Human Resources tab. You can see there's some sample elementary goals, math goals, a sample AP biology goal, English, social studies, PE, a self-contained special ed goal. Obviously, I know you don't have time to read all of those right now, but again, that's on page 8 and 9 of the Teacher Performance Evaluation Handbook if you want to pull from samples, and you and your new teacher can talk through those. But again, the importance of that goal is it helps keep everything focused so that it is goal relevant. It helps the teacher be persistent so that they can work towards that goal. We want to make sure that the teacher determines their own goal. You don't want to give them, you don't want to have like a third grade goal and just give them that goal. There may be some department-wide or grade level goals, but that teacher still wants to have their specific goal for their students that they're working with. And it needs to be very specific and have those time components so that it is measurable. The annual goal form, of course, is available. Teachers have to complete sections 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So they will describe the setting, the student population they're talking about, their specific content area that they're including in their goal, what's their baseline data, and then what exactly are their students going to accomplish. So they'll do 1, 2, 3, 4. They'll also start filling out Component 5, those strategies for improvement, how they will achieve the goal. And again, Component 6 and 7 will come at the mid-year and at the end of the year. So they will have to meet and review their annual goal with their administrator no later than November 2nd. So you want to have that mock conversation during September. Start looking at that baseline data and help them write their goal. They'll have to have their mid-year conference by the end of January, and of course the end of the year by May. But our top priority right now is simulating the goal meeting before they meet with the administrator so they feel that they know why they've targeted that student population, they know what baseline data they're starting with, and what interventions and strategies they're going to put in place to help increase student achievement and student growth. Since you are an assigned mentor, probably you're working with someone who has 0 years of experience. A couple of you are working with people who maybe have 0 years of experience in a specific field. So maybe they were a special ed teacher and now they're a general classroom teacher. They were a classroom and now they're PE, that sort of thing. But for the most part, most of you want to make sure that your new teacher knows that if they have 0 years of experience, they are on a continuing contract for 5 full years. They will not kind of have tenure until they have been with Bedford County 5 years. If they worked in Virginia in a different county and had continuing status, they have to work for us 2 years before they would have continuing contract status. So they would have probationary contract status with us for anywhere from 2 to 5 years, depending on where your person falls on this chart. So again, you want to just think about who your new teacher is, where they are, and just make sure that they are aware of how long they are going to be on a probationary contract with Bedford County. As a first-year probationary teacher with us, so if they have no experience with us, they would get a minimum of 3 observations per year, 1 in the first 9 weeks, 1 in the second, 1 in the third 9 weeks, and the pre-conferences are as needed. So that is based on an administrator's decision. But so again, make sure that your new teachers know that they will be getting at least 3 formal observations throughout the school year by their administrator. So your role in all of this is to help build on the teacher's strengths, help them stay focused on the process, provide choices, make sure that they understand the process, and the process is transparent and that the rationale is clear to them. Make sure they know why they're setting an annual goal. Make sure they know why an administrator is going to come in and be doing observations and having post-observation conferences that's going to always be referring back to that annual goal that they set and what data that they are collecting and tracking towards that goal. A couple of tools that we are going to ask that you use with your new teacher. I want to make sure that it's very clear that you're not using this to evaluate your new teacher's lesson plan. This is just a tool to use in conversations with your new teachers. But you'll find the full tool in the Google Classroom. This is just the first page of it. But this is a tool that was created by the Virginia Department of Education. And it's kind of a 4-page tool that really gets teachers to reflect on what is part of my lesson plan. So if I'm going to design an effective lesson, what needs to be included. And so obviously you can see on this first page it talks about alignment with the standards. Even if you're CTE, you have standards. If you're health and PE, you have standards. It talks about pacing, sequencing, assessment, what resources are available. So again, it is a 4-page tool and it's in the Google Classroom, and I want you to sit down with your new teacher and maybe look at one of your lesson plans, one of their lesson plans, and go through and just use the tool as a checklist. It is not to evaluate the new teacher. It's not to, condemn their lesson plans and to make yours look great or to condemn yours. It's just a tool that the state uses to help us think about what are the components of a quality lesson plan. And the way the state uses this tool is they say if you can't make it past page 1, then stop. So they're obviously saying that page 1 is the most important. So we want to make sure that if nothing else, we have clear objectives for students. We've linked to the standards. Students know if they've met the objective for the day, so that objective has a measurable component. So if you have questions about this tool, please feel free to email me. But I want you to use that in a conversation. Sit down with your new teacher, look at one of your lesson plans using the tool, look at one of their lesson plans using the tool, and just have a conversation. If they don't have objectives, then you have a conversation about, okay, what does an objective look like? What does it need to have in it? Again, based on what's missing, you maybe can tie that back to the performance standards. And so I've also put this document in the Google Classroom. Again, nothing that you're going to fill out and have to turn in, but just things to think about. What are maybe some areas that they are struggling with? Is it the planning? Is it instructional delivery? Is it student academic progress? Are they not collecting adequate assessment, or is the assessment not aligned to the standards? So it's just another tool to think about, to kind of guide your new teacher in thinking about it. Professional knowledge. How are we satisfying professional knowledge? How are you illustrating this standard? Because again, these are the same standards that the principal is going to be evaluating them. And so it's great if you can kind of model those conversations with them before they have it with their administrator. How are they assessing students? How are they, exemplifying professionalism? That sort of thing. And then the other tool that's in the Google Classroom looks very similar to the school lesson plan tool that I just showed you. And this one by the Virginia Department of Ed is called the School Lesson Observation Tool. Again, please do not use this with your new teacher to go in and observe their lesson and mark checks and then, either congratulate or condemn them. We just want you to use this as a tool. So I'd invite you to, during the month of September, go into your new teacher's classroom and just use this as a conversation starter for your next weekly meeting. So you go into the classroom, use this checklist, and then just have a conversation about, okay, I saw in your lesson plan you had an objective, but we didn't communicate that to students. Again, we just want to make sure that we're using this tool appropriately, not to evaluate, but just as a conversation starter. If something wasn't in the lesson, there may be a very valid reason why it wasn't in the lesson, because maybe it was in the lesson before, or the lesson after, or as soon as you walked out, it occurred. So again, it's just to have a conversation with a new teacher so that they're thinking about, are these components there? If it's impossible for you to go into your new teacher's classroom during the month of September, have them reflect on a lesson during one of you all's meetings and fill it out together. So think about maybe their lesson during third block that day and kind of fill out the chart together and discuss it so that you can have that reflective conversation about it. But again, we are not using these tools in an evaluative manner. And then in the Google Classroom, once you've used both the lesson plan tool with your new teacher and the lesson observation tool, you're just going to kind of give a quick summary of thinking about what are the things that are currently strengths for your new teacher and what are current areas of focus or areas of weakness. Maybe alignment with standards is a great strength, but maybe assessment is a weakness. Or maybe they're assessing kids and they're collecting data, but is it not really aligned at the same level of blooms that the standard is written? Maybe the standard asks them to compare and contrast, but that's not how they're assessing kids. The assessment's not asking kids to compare and contrast. So that's how these tools are designed to be used in the way we're using them in the classroom with our new teachers. Not to evaluate, but to start a conversation.